We've been working with the cities selected, and then really 6 to 8 months before that, working with NetZeroCities and the mission platform, as well as the European Commission. The major point I think to emphasize is just how much learning has been happening throughout that process. Sometimes it may not be that visible to us from a distance, and it may not seem like we're learning because we have to keep saying things around city needs, the importance of national platforms, peer-to-peer sharing, etc. But I can tell you that there's been a lot of learning and a lot of value in that process. And that learning is happening at the commission level with the mission secretariat and the staff and leadership around that. It's happening at the across the commission and around the various EU institutions, the various departments that are working on climate-related issues. So there is quite a bit of learning happening there, and I think even in the last few months, you can see how that's going to benefit us going forward. I think many of you may know that the Commission asked for there to be a formal review of all of the missions, the 5 missions that have been underway for the last 2 years. And that work is wrapping up with a very, I think, positive message around both missions in general, but the city's mission in particular, and its ability to work with cities to help build a way of working and working together that I think is quite important. I think another thing where there's been a lot of learning is within the mission platform and NetZeroCities. As you know, we're 34 different organizations across Europe representing city networks, universities, and knowledge institutions, and leading practitioners who work with cities around climate action. And we've had to learn how to work together in a very large consortium with a huge job, which is to help 112 cities pursue the mission and develop ways to help all cities in Europe to be successful in accelerating their climate action. And that has been a real learning process over the last many months. With so many cities, we have to strike a constant balance between taking a more general approach and being able to offer very specific approaches and support that's unique to each individual city. And we have to be able to do both of those things together. That's quite a challenging effort and something that we've had to learn to do a lot. I think the other thing that's worth noting is there are so many different starting points where cities are at and where they're working on new activities or working against sort of barriers to try to overcome them, et cetera, that we really have to find ways to show how much is actually happening and where it's happening so that cities can benefit from that, but we can also build confidence that the efforts here are meaningful and credible around helping to respond to the climate emergency. 2 other very quick things in terms of learning. I think another is, and this is something that we know, but we are constantly reminded of, and the importance is reinforced, which is that while our work often feels very technical, sometimes it's very scientific or data intensive or very process and institutional, our work is primarily about people and relationships. And those have to do within our own organizations as well as working together with multiple organizations. That means we have to be able to understand each other, work together on very difficult things, which requires us to build trust and have an appreciation of what each of us brings into that work, our background, our capabilities, our experiences, how we work well, where we don't work as well, et cetera. but we're constantly learning and being reminded of just how important it is to recognize that we're people first, and how we're successful in this challenging work that we're trying to do is driven, at least in part, at how successful we are engaging with each other, getting to know each other, and developing a positive way of working together. You know, we don't have to be friends, although we can be, but we do have to be positive in how we engage with each other and do this work. The last thing I'd share on this point is that, and we've heard this from a lot of cities, that as we began this process with 112 cities that were selected, recognizing that in cases like Spain, France, and other places, they wanted to support all of the cities that sought to participate in the mission. We've had to help on behalf of the Commission get cities started in this process in a very accelerated way. And that meant that there was a lot of process from the Commission, from the mission, saying, do this, do this, do this. And that's been quite intense for the last 13 months. And I think in some cases, cities have said, well, we don't like this so much. We'd like to do something else. And I think that what we've learned is that, you know, it's difficult to find an effective starting point for everyone in a mission, but we're now at a place where we can allow the city-driven process to have a bigger role in determining when something is done, how it's done, et cetera. And that helps to, I think, transition to the next point, which is one of the strongest things we've seen is that cities who are working together are doing more. They're helping each other. The work is better, and there's a sense that they're able to move more quickly, which is important as part of this process. And I think first I want to just sort of acknowledge and commend the work of Cities 2030 and all of the cities who are part of this process over the last number of years. Not just the cities here who are part of the mission, but all of the cities working together have enabled the cities from Spain to really be great examples for the rest of Europe about how to engage with the mission itself, from the Climate City contracts to the Pilot Cities program to the City Learning program. You know, Julio often draws upon the experience of Cities 2030 when he says part of the value is that the cities are working together, not on their own, and that they're helping each other, and that because of this, you're more ready to do the very difficult work that's ahead of us. And I think that is important to recognize and acknowledge just how important that is. Another point that I think is quite important to bring out, and this is these conversations are happening more and more every week, and will become a much more visible part of what we do as NetZeroCities for the mission platform, and that is to more directly engage with you in supporting advancing policy and governance innovations that are critical to taking these actions. We're going to see the emergence in the next several months of a number of policy labs, some of which might be specific to a particular city, a particular region, or even a particular country, where there's a policy issue that needs to be tackled, and needs to be tackled by cities, regional government, national government working together, recognizing that's a key step in achieving the mission. Another part of it is creating a much more open discussion about the importance of multi-level governance, and that we lack good models for what multi-level governance needs to become in order to be effective. And let me just speak to that for a minute, because one of the things, and maybe I'm a little bit more aware of this coming from outside of Europe, but I hear many, many, many times that each country is somewhat different. in how it works. The relationship of national government, regional government, city government changes from Spain to Italy to France to Greece to Germany, etc. And I think it's important to both recognize that and to constantly remind ourselves that getting to something like climate neutrality, whether as an individual city, a group of cities in the mission, or all of Europe as a continent under the Green Deal, requires us to really embrace the idea that our existing governance structures and processes are not going to allow us to do that without changing. We don't have to know what the ultimate change looks like in reality, but we have to be prepared to try to work in different ways. Whether that means a national government empowering cities to do something that they're currently not allowed to do, that prevents them from taking collective action on behalf of their citizens or businesses to reduce climate impacts or respond to those needs more effectively, or to mobilize capital to support those actions that they have identified. But that's going to continue to be an area we need to work on. With so many different countries with different ways of doing things, it gives us a lot to draw upon, but it also means we have a lot of work to do in that regard. And I bring this up because it's not immediately obvious in the discussions of the mission at the European level just how important that is. But we will see day to day, week to week, that it will be one of the most important things we need to do. And it's here again where I think it's always great to be able to draw upon the experience of all of you here with your experiences over the last many years where you signed an agreement to work together, which then led to the creation of Cities 2030 as a national platform, which is now being used as a way in the climate city contracts that have been developed by the cities, getting the city government and the national government to make commitments together. And we know we need to continue to build on that. And we know that no matter how much work it is, and it's always work, right? Because politics and elections mean changes in who's leading, when they're leading, and what they want to emphasize. It becomes a place where we can continue to stay in the conversation and keep working on what are challenges that are bigger than politics. And this is one of those issues. And we know that because we continue to feel it. It's very hot. We all saw the temperatures in Spain last week. We know how significant these issues are, so we'll continue to work on this. I think the other thing that is evident from these conversations is that cities, no matter how many people in Brussels or in national governments are looking at climate issues, cities really know the most about how to do something about climate change on the ground. And one of the things we're seeing in these multi-level governance conversations is cities need support and the ability to take action more than they need direction. It's often a little more complicated than that, but I think it speaks to the 2 decades that cities have been working very hard on this issue and have built knowledge and capacity that I think often is missed in the conversation. The very last thing I wanted to say, and then I'll stop, is, Cities 2030 and represents a national platform that is a model for the rest of Europe. There are both formal and informal examples of that elsewhere. But I think the things that are specific and valuable about what you've done together is that you've initiated this, you've made the commitment, you've driven the conversation and the need up to regional and national government, and now it's being heard at the European level as well, and it's used to help other cities and other countries try to do something quite similar. And we recognize the real value of the mission and the commission and NetZeroCities supporting that with time, with energy, and hopefully including finding additional resources to support that work as we go forward. We know how important that is in the process, and we know how critical times like this week where you all get together and learn together with each other, we know how important that is to helping us with that process. I think I'll just stop here. And again, note, it would have been a lot more fun to be there with you, both for these 2 days as well as the summer school with the non-Spanish cities who are coming to Santander. So unfortunately, I cannot, but there is always next year. We'll try again. We keep trying. So with that, let me stop. Thank you very much, and turn it back over to you, Julio, or others. I don't know if there are questions or if we want to have any questions, etc.
Hi, Tom, can you hear us now? Can you hear us? No? Calling over the phone. Can you hear us now? Yes. Okay, so if you unmute, we can talk through the phone. Just unmute yourself on Zoom. Okay, excellent. So now we can hear you from the room and you can hear us. So there was a big applause here from 100 people saying thank you. So I don't know if there is any question from the audience. If not, I would maybe summarize 1 minute in Spanish, Tom, and then we'll close the session, okay?
Okay.
Great. So these technologies, let's mute here. Entonces, bueno, pues nada, que por si acaso, como no ha podido haber traducción simultánea porque era un poco demasiado complicado para estos 15-20 minutos, yo simplemente quería destacar primero las disculpas de Thomas por no poder venir en persona, que le habría encantado, como ha dicho al final, y que por eso se ha tenido que conectar online. Y es difícil resumir, y no lo pretendo hacer, la cantidad de cosas creo que maravillosas que ha dicho, pero sí me quiero quedar con una cosa que ha dicho al final, y es el grandísimo reconocimiento que hay desde Europa al liderazgo que estáis teniendo las ciudades españolas, porque, como ha dicho él, estáis siendo ejemplo en todos los aspectos, en cómo habéis hecho los acuerdos climáticos, en cómo estáis llevando el piloto de rehabilitación, en cómo estáis trabajando ahora en la implementación de la misión, hasta el punto de que el trabajo de España se está replicando en Europa y no solo hay otros muchos países intentando hacer lo mismo, sino que la Comisión Europea está diciendo que ese es el camino. Y la misión está diciendo que el camino es trabajar, colaborar en lugar de competir, como estáis haciendo vosotros y como ha dicho antes Elena Pita, la directora de la Fundación Biodiversidad. Así que creo que es un reconocimiento extremadamente merecido para todos los que estáis aquí y también un apoyo y un impulso para seguir trabajando y en estos 3 días pues trabajar nosotros y luego los 3 días después, cuando tengamos el curso de verano con las ciudades de NetZeroCities, pues que también, como vais a estar todas las ciudades españolas ahí, que sigáis transmitiendo ese impulso y esas ganas a las otras ciudades. Así que con eso, si os parece. So Tom, I just finished the translate, and well, it's not a summary, of course, it's just a kind of encouraging words because we loved what you said. It was remarkable and very inspiring, and we very much appreciate. So now we'll continue the course and we'll see you online also for the NetZeroCities course. Thank you so, so much.
Great. Thanks very much. It's great to see you all, even on your computers, and I hope to see you all again soon.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.